Hello and welcome to another episode of Handloader TV with me, your host, Jeremiah. And in this episode, we're continuing along in our Propellant Profile series in video format, which accompanies the magazine column Propellant Profiles. Currently, at the time of this filming, Randy Bimson is writing those columns, and I'd encourage you guys to check that out because he takes a little bit deeper dive into the nuts and bolts of the powder, how it works, bulk densities, all kinds of really interesting things. And it's a great source of information specifically relating to powder that you really can't get anywhere else. So in this episode, we're taking an in-depth look at Accurate 2230, and if you saw our first episode of Propellant Profiles here in video format, we took a look at Accurate number 7 and we took a deep dive into the history and all that. I'm going to go ahead and skip over that for this episode because we have covered Accurate powders before, but it's a really neat history and I'd encourage you guys to check out episode number 1 there. So without further ado, let's take a closer look and a deeper dive into Accurate 2230 powder and some of its characteristics. So when I was conducting my research on Accurate 2230 powder, the history of the powder itself is a little bit confusing because it's kind of been all over the place. It was introduced sometime in the 1980s, roughly estimating it, and at the time Accurate had discontinued their MR223, Mr. 223 line of powders and replaced it with Accurate 2230. And I believe at the time they were manufacturing that in Israel, and there was a plant explosion, and as a result Accurate Arms had to go out and find a different powder manufacturing plant in order to create Accurate 2230. But it was introduced somewhere in the 80s, and it's been produced in Israel, South Africa, Belgium, the Czech Republic, and now currently with Accurate being under the Hodgdon brand, the manufacturing has come full circle and now it's being manufactured in the United States, which is pretty neat. It's been designed around the 223 Remington cartridge or the 5.56 NATO, and it does really well in that cartridge. I've used it quite a bit over the years in that cartridge as well. It's similar in burn rate, and we'll pull up the burn rate chart here to showcase to you. It's very similar to H335, Ramshot X Terminator. Then you have 2230 there, Accurate 2460, and then IMR 8208 XBR, which is a very popular option in the AR-15, which we have here. We're going to shoot some 5.56 NATO 223 through this guy, show you just what this powder can do and the versatility that this powder is capable of. We have 204 Ruger on the small end and 4570 on the large end. So very broad range of cartridges that you can use 2230 in. Now let's go ahead and jump over to the microscope and we'll take a closer look at the powder itself and more details on it. So now that we've got the powder under the microscope, you can take a close-up look of it and look at the variation in granule size. And if you look closely at it, you'll see that it is a spherical powder, or as some people refer to them as a ball powder. And overall, the consistency of the powder is pretty good here. And I should take a note here. The older Accurate 2230C, which is no longer made, while it's very similar in burn rate to 2230, they are not the same powder. So just take note of that if you come across 2230C at a gun show or something like that. It is a slightly different powder, similar but not the same. So use appropriate load data for that powder. But there's plenty of load data available for Accurate 2230, and according to my resources, 2230 contains approximately 10% nitroglycerin, and the average grain size is 0.22 inches. Its bulk density is 1 gram per cubic centimeter. You'll see that abbreviated oftentimes in the magazine. It's a very good powder for 5.56 NATO and duplicating the military Mark 262 loading. And I actually use that this exact powder to duplicate that load quite a bit, and I've had great success doing so. So overall, it's a really good powder with a lot of versatility. It can also be used in 4570, as we talked about earlier, and the 458 Winchester. Big bore straight-walled cartridges This powder is more than capable of being utilized in those cartridges, and also smaller varmint cartridges such as the 204 Ruger. I've used this powder quite a bit in the 22-250 Remington, had great results with that as well. And of course, you can use it in the 308 Winchester, and it tends to shine with lightweight bullets. The heaviest bullet that I've had great success with is a 155 grain bullet, and I think that's kind of pushing it. It does really good with that 110 to 130 grain weight range in the 308 Winchester. 4570 is pretty interesting there because 4570 has so many different pressure levels. Now, accurate 2230 is only suitable in guns that can handle 23,000 psi and up. Don't use it in your Springfield trapdoor rifles or anything like that. You want good, strong, modern lever actions or firearms of similar strength. Your Ruger #1s are more than capable of using 2230. And then last but not least, we got this AR. It functions very well in AR-15s. It cycles the bolt. There's a proper ratio of gas in there to get them to feed and function reliably. So now let's go ahead and talk briefly about each one of these rifles, and then we'll go ahead and hit the range and do some shooting with them. Now, since Accurate 2230 is such a versatile powder, we kind of wanted to showcase you that with a wide variety of firearms here before us and cartridges. You have something small like the 204 Ruger right here, and for that we're using a Kimber Model 84L, I believe it is, with a Nikon scope on it, and we haven't done a load development video yet with this rifle or cartridge, but we will be doing something in the future on it, and I've got a few tweaks I want to make to the rifle, so keep an eye out for that. But it can be used in the 204 Ruger. Next up, I have a custom AR-15 here with a brand new rebuilt AAC 762 SD suppressor attached to it to make our shooting just a little bit more civilized. And that's another rifle that we have not done a video on as of yet, but we will be doing one in the near future. This one's kind of got some sentimental value to me, and we'll be doing a full load development on it in the future as well. It's got a Vortex Razor 1-10 optic on top of it, and it's got a Proof Research carbon fiber barrel 16 inches in length. Next up, we have the Nosler M21 chambered in 308 Winchester, and we have done a load development video on this. If you haven't checked it out, I'd encourage you guys, check it out. Lots of good information in there. And I have a Texas Silencer Company Hunter model suppressor screwed onto the end, again, to make shooting just a little bit more civilized. And then last but not least, the 4570 we're using is a Marlin 1895 SBL. This is one of the Ruger-made Marlins, and we've done a full load development video on that. So if you want more details on these two rifles, check out those videos. There's tons of great information in there. So the overall versatility of this powder is outstanding, going from 204 Ruger, 5.56 NATO, high performance 223, 308 Winchester, all the way up to big straight-walled cartridges, even up to the 458 Winchester Magnum. So very impressive versatility. We're going to take these rifles, hit the range, and we're not going to be doing a full load development or anything like that with this powder. What we're going to do is pick a decent charge weight somewhere in the middle of the road, shoot it, show that it will hit steel at 100 yards, not so much focused on the accuracy, but more so showcasing you the versatility of this powder. So let's go ahead and hit the range. So as you can see now, we're out on the range. It's a beautiful day out here, and according to the Kestrel 5700, the temperature is 73 degrees Fahrenheit, humidity is 37%, altitude of course is 5,000 feet, pressure is 25.35 in Hg, and we have a slight breeze coming from about the 2 o'clock position at about 2 to 5 miles per hour. Not too bad. And what we're going to be doing today is we're just going to be showcasing you the versatility of Accurate 2230 powder. So we have a few different rifles, a few different charges, and that we'll be testing through these rifles, but this is not a full load development, and I want to make that very clear. So the accuracy here isn't really what we're trying to showcase, but more so the versatility and different cartridges that you can use Accurate 2230 in. It's a personal favorite powder of mine, and I've had a lot of good results in all of these cartridges. We're going to start out smallest to largest and kind of show you how wide the versatility range is. We have a steel gong set up downrange at 100 yards. We're going to be shooting at that. Again, not really for accuracy, so we didn't bother setting up paper. And we have an Ahler Model 35P chronograph set up 10 feet from the muzzle exactly, with a 4-foot sky screen spacing to record all of our velocities. It's one of the most accurate chronographs on the market, and it has a proof channel to let you know if there's anything funny going on with your readings. So on that note, let's go ahead and get this 204 benched in, settled in, and we'll get started. First up is the 204 Ruger. Wind's at about 4 or 5 miles an hour, according to the Kestrel. Let's go ahead and put some rounds on the steel. Not bad at all for just picking a middle of the road charge there for the 204 Ruger. Let's go ahead and swap over to the next rifle and cartridge. So next up in the queue, we've got some 5.56 NATO to try out. This is a custom AR-15 that we will be doing a load development video on in the future, so keep an eye out for that. It's a pretty neat build with a lot of personal significance behind it, and I'll share that in that video. But for this load, we're using a 62 grain SS109 with Accurate 2230 powder, a 24.4 grain charge, and it's loaded to the 5.56 NATO specification and pressure, so just keep that in mind. Let's go ahead and put a few rounds on steel, see how it does. Very nice. So the next rifle and load we have up to showcase the versatility of Accurate 2230 is this Nosler M21 rifle, which we've done a full load development video on. If you haven't seen that, be sure to check that out. Chambered in .308 Winchester. 42.5 grain charge with 155 grain Hornady boat tail hollow point with a cantilever. Target is at 100 range. Let's go ahead and see if we can ring some steel with this guy. See if we can put them in the head box, huh? Well, it looks like our hits are walking along that edge. Let's go ahead and hold a little bit more left. There we go, I like that. There she is. 5 rounds on the target. Good velocity numbers. So last, but certainly not least, we have the 4570 Government In this Marlin 1895 SBL, we have done a full load development video on this rifle and cartridge. I'd encourage you guys to check that out as well. Target's at 100 yards. For this load, we're using 44 grains of accurate 2230 powder with a 300 grain Hornady jacketed hollow point. This is loaded to a pressure level that I would only recommend in these Marlin 1895 lever actions or actions of similar or stronger strength. But let's go ahead and put the 5 rounds we got here on the target, get the velocity, and head on back inside. That certainly hits with some authority. Poof the bag for this last one. So now that we're back inside and at the bench, we've got a bunch of load data to go over, and we'll go ahead and give you the charge that we used in each one of these cartridges and rifle combinations, but then we'll also give you the starting charge and the maximum charge for each of these cartridges, should you want to try it out. If you have a 4570 or a 204 Ruger, of course everybody's got a 223 or 556 rifle. So let's go ahead and take a look at our first one with the 204 Ruger and the Kimber Model 84. We used a 27.7 grain charge of accurate 2230 to propel a 26 grain Barnes varmint grenade to an average velocity of 4,191 feet per second. And your starting charge with this powder is 26.7 grains, and your maximum charge is 29.7 grains. And overall, shooting that steel, I thought the accuracy was pretty good for how fast I was shooting and just the way I was shooting. So not bad with that. Then we went ahead and swapped over to our AR-15 here, and this does have a 16-inch barrel. Keep that in mind for your velocity reference. This can come in handy. We used a 24.4 grain charge of accurate 2230 to propel a 62 grain SS-109, basically a full metal jacket bullet there, to an average velocity of 2,871 feet per second. Now your starting charge with 5.56 NATO load data is 21.4 grains. Your maximum charge would be about 25 grains. Depends on your source here. Hodgdon doesn't have 5.56 NATO load data on their website, and I couldn't find any of it, but Western Powders did a bunch of 5.56 NATO data. They did a really good job with accurate 2230 there. And that's the data I used to work up this particular load. And to be honest with you, it shot very well. And we got an SD of 6 and an extreme spread of 15. Not bad for just picking a random load in the middle of the charge weight range and running with it. So if you're going to load to 5.56 pressures, you can get up there a little bit. If you're loading to 223 Remington, your maximum is going to be a 23.8 grain charge. Hopefully that makes sense. If you have questions, leave them in the comments below. Next up, we have a 308 Winchester. This is the Nosler M21 rifle. We've done a full load development with this guy, but I did not use accurate 2230 powder if I recall correctly. We picked a 42.5 grain charge to propel a 155 grain Hornady boat tail hollow point to an average velocity of 2,723 feet per second. not terribly fast, and this powder really does shine more with the 120, 130, 110 grain bullet weights in the .308 Winchester. It does very well there, and you get very good velocity. But we still got pretty good accuracy and velocity with that 155 grain Hornady bullet. Not complaining about that at all. Your starting charge for this would be a 39.7 grain charge, and your maximum would be 44.1 grains of powder. And the 4570 is the last rifle that we went ahead and used Accurate 2230 in, a 44 grain charge with a 300 grain Hornady jacketed hollow point. We get an average velocity of 1,702 feet per second with this load. A little bit slow on that for some reason, not quite sure why. It could be different case used, or there's a lot of things that go into that. But if you wanted to load 4570 to the lever gun specification, 28,000 psi maximum there, and a starting pressure of around 23,000, again not safe for Springfield trapdoor rifles, you would start at a 42 grain charge and work your way up to a 46 grain charge maximum. So overall, really good results. You can see for yourself the wide variety of cartridges that you can use Accurate 2230 in. So next time you see it at the gun store and you go, I wonder if I could use that in this cartridge or that cartridge, now you have a pretty good idea if you can or not. For me personally, I've been using Accurate 2230 powder a long time in 223, 22-250, 204 Ruger, and many other cartridges, and I've had great results with them. And I'd love to hear if you guys have had any experience or what kind of results you've gotten using Accurate 2230 powder. Be sure and leave those in the comments section below. Overall, I think it's a really great powder. It's got a wide range of versatility of cartridges, from the straight wall Magnum cartridges down to the tiny little varmint cartridges. It performs really, really well. And it's great to see that Accurate 2230 is being manufactured back here in the US, which is great. A little side note on that, sometimes you get some data variations because this powder has jumped over. It's been made in so many different countries over the years. Sometimes the older data is a little bit different than the newer data, and there's a reason for that, because the manufacturer is different. And anytime a manufacturer changes, chances are there could be a little bit of variation in how it's made, the burn rate, that kind of thing. So if you want to use the most accurate and current data, be sure to head over to Hodgdon's website, check that out. You'll get the most current data for Accurate 2230, and it should line up velocity-wise. So hopefully you guys learned something about this powder, took something away from it. I want to thank you guys so much for watching. We really do appreciate it. If you liked what you saw, don't forget to give us a thumbs up, let us know, make us feel good and happy about the video. And don't forget to subscribe and hit that bell icon so you're notified when we post our next video. We've got a lot of exciting things in the works. I've got a 6mm Creedmoor coming up, and we've got to do something on this particular rifle here, chambered in 5.56. It's a pretty neat build here. A local gunsmith did a lot of work on it. I expect good things out of it. And we also have this 204 Ruger here to tinker around and play with and work on. So be sure to subscribe. You don't want to miss out. And as always, if you have any questions, comments, concerns, there's the comment section below. We'd love to hear from you, and I do my best to read and respond to every one of those. So until next time, get out there, spend some time behind your rifle with a good load, have fun, and I'll catch you guys in the next episode.